Hello, and welcome to Talking Utter Slot, the podcast for the slot car fan, the racer, the collector, or the just plain curious.
It's almost like you wrote that down previously.
I did. What are we going to talk about this week, Peter?
I don't know. All sorts of stuff, I think, Scott.
Oh,
now,
okay.
I haven't clearly written things down, have I? Ah, you swine. Well, we were going to. There's a whole load of stuff that's caught my eye.
That's good. We'll get to come by. We're going to talk about what's written down the side of the Carrera British Racing Green truck because, and the reason we're going to talk about that is, when we saw the picture of it in the Carrera range reveal video,
We couldn't read it.
we couldn't read it. And we were intrigued by it. So for people who didn't see it, it's a big green truck with a giant rear wing with a Union flag on it, 6 wheels. It's called Brimstone on the front, and it had words written down the side, and we couldn't make out what they were. And we speculated that, somewhat optimistically, I think highly optimistically, that if there was anyone listening who could tell us what it was, they should get in touch. Well, someone got in touch.
Did we have a letter from Mrs. Trellis in North Wales, Scott?
No, much further afield, actually, all the way across the channel in
Wales.
Europe. Not Wales. But thank you for the... I'm sorry, I haven't a clue reference. I'll appreciate that. What it says down the side of the truck is, and I quote, "the most noble order of the controller." As in, like, the most noble order of the garter or whatever.
I want to say thank you to the person who put us out of our misery, but now I have so many more questions for the person who put us out of our misery. The most noble order of the controller.
On controller. I think it's so taking a lead from the Order of the Garter, which is the only other sort of thing I can think of. I think it's sort of it's an award, it's an honour that's bestowed upon people for specific reasons, and I think we should assume that if we get to the end of this year and we're doing another Talking Utter Slot Awards programme, we should have, an award to the Noble Order of the Controller that waits for the person we think deserves to be specially recognised.
I like your thinking there. You didn't write that in the script. I like your thinking. The Noble Order of the Controller is in our purview to bestow, lots of words there, on someone we think has stood out.
It could, and we might even get them a Carrera racing truck.
Yeah.
Heavy emphasis on the might.
Yeah.
The podcast isn't making, well, it's not making any money, never mind. So
that is not the point.
But no, the point is, I was very excited that we got a letter. It was an electronic communication, but let's call it a letter, because it meant someone was listening. So, I mean, it really did make my week. So thank you you know who you are. You wisely want to remain anonymous, but thank you very much.
Hang on, Scott, you're assuming that they have continued listening.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to bring you down.
That's crushed now.
That's a bit brutal.
Yeah. All right, well, we better go into what's caught my eye this week.
Yeah, what has caught my eye this week? I noticed that the Avant slot transits are out, the transits. I didn't quite appreciate previously, I'm sure I read it, it just didn't sink in, that they're resin. And I'm pretty sure it sunk in that they're 200 quid.
Oh, and then some, 220 plus postage.
Oh, gosh.
Cheaper if you're on the other side of the channel, it would seem, but then there's a whole issue about that. I saw a picture of one, and forgive me, I can't remember who it was, on Facebook, and they'd obviously bought one, and it was on their track, and it looked lovely. But what particularly caught my eye was the reflection across the windshield. Now, before you think I'm very weird, let me explain. It really it highlighted how flush the windscreen was and how nicely shaped it was. And so it wasn't that kind of what I might expect on a low volume, almost handmade model where it was, yes, there's some yeah. This looked really nice, and it had a sort of, the impression of a rubber seal. Anyway, I was very impressed with the quality of the thing, and as you know, I was already quite tempted, and I'm more tempted than I was. But then I worked out, crucially, that I could have 3.5 slotted cars for one transit van.
And that isn't good. 230 quid, did you say they are?
Yeah.
Yeah, for one transit van, and which you're not going to race, you're just going to pick it off the shelf, put it on the track, maybe do 2 or 3 laps, and then go. That's very pretty. I like that. You put it back on the shelf, and then a little voice in your head will go, "Why did you buy that, Scott?"
Oh, that happens all the time.
Mm.
So yeah. Anyway, so I think it's great. I think it's lovely. It looks as though I'll be looking forward to seeing one in the material of manufacture. But from the pictures, it looks good.
It looks stunning, and I think it's interesting to see that because there's other people doing well, not transits, but doing vans. Well, no, Ford car model, Fly car model. I've been reading up about Red Bull Racing and Ford. Fly car model are doing their transit, aren't they? And I'm sure somebody else is doing a Citroën or something, or has done a Citroën. Or
Is that the little Hobby Classic one? Hobby
could be.
Classic are doing an old van,
Hobby
and
Classic as a brand keep popping up, don't they?
it's something's happened. I don't know enough about what, but the other people who have long existed, really. I've got an old Hobby Classic resin Spanish sports car thing, which is lovely, but it's ancient. But they've just done that series of racing color Bugattis.
Can I just ask you, when you say you didn't give it a make, a mark. Is it that dubious resin?
Pegaso, is that it?
Oh, okay, yeah, that old Spanish brand. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
My
it's
experience
lovely.
of resin is unfortunate. I was going to say coloured by that Galaxy that I bought recently at Swindon, I think, maybe somewhere else, which is a bit. It's nice, but it's a bit. Meh, it's a bit rough around the edges, and I always think resin is going to be a bit rough around the edges. But those transits look pretty good. Won't deny it.
Well, I'm no expert on making toy cars, but I would have thought the old days when people were doing low volume manufacturing, so they would have hand carved a mold and then used resin to make it, etc., because they weren't going to do injection molding.
Did,
These days, if you can scan something or you can get the files off Tinternet and you can make the mold accurate enough, then surely the resin will be just as accurate as the mold is, no?
this is blowing my mind. So you're saying you could go to Tinternet, get the specs of a car van, put them into some system, make a mold, and okay, this is the modern world in which we live in.
I,
The other thing that my experience of resin is back in the mists of time when I was just getting back into toy cars. I'm really excited by my various Ninko purchases. I made the foolish mistake of buying a team slot Nissan GTR 32, which is one of my dream cars. It's in my dream car garage. Um, and this thing had a vague resemblance of an R32. Certainly didn't go like one. It was awful. And from that point on, I've actually been pretty anti-resin and probably still am. The transits, very impressive, very nice. Yes.
Also very nice, also in resin, is and I'll have to read this one, the FV slot, which is a new one
Oh.
to me. FV slot Toyota 7 Turbo.
Did I tip you the wink, or had you already seen that? I saw it on slotcarpassion.com, good website to go to, and I just thought, well, that's right up your alley. But it's right up mine as well, because I don't know what it is about that Toyota 7. You filled me in on a little bit of the backstory, which is a bit grim, but the beast itself is just a beast itself, isn't it? It's a fantastic looking machine.
Yeah, I mean, for those who haven't seen it, and Google is your friend here, if you Google Toyota 7,
And Slot Car Passion is your friend as well.
indeed, yes. It was built to Can-Am regulations, so it's a fairly typical Can-Am car of the late 60s, early 70s, in as much as it's got a huge engine, a tiny cockpit, and a kind of swoopy body. It did have a big wing. It was, I think, from memory, without looking at all the books, it's something like the fourth or fifth Toyota 7. The 7 refers to the regulations it was built to, so Group 7, which was Can-Am. But this one never raced because they had some fatal accidents in testing. And without going into too much detail here, the people who died, or the person who died, was rather important, and it was all a bit embarrassing, and the whole thing got sort of cancelled. Until about 20 years ago, when people in the Toyota Museum used coming to Goodwood as an excuse to recommission these old cars. And so they were made into running order and brought back over again. As I say, must be 20 years ago now.
I've got lots
So
of questions which would take us possibly off toy cars, but that's fine, I think. Um, you said it was wedgy and had a bit of a wing. It's got a massive grey wing on the rear. It's a proper full, it's not a tea tray. What is it? It's the lid off a coffin. That doesn't fit because we've just been talking about the teas. But it's a massive thing. It's also, it looks to me like a McLaren 8, is it? I think there's a McLaren something something 8. It looks like one of those, which is a beast of a car, but on steroids.
yeah, well, I think one of the things that helps it is it's got that wonderful, a bit like a 917. The rear deck goes over an otherwise exposed engine, exhaust, rear suspension, so there's no rear bodywork on it, and of course that always makes it look exciting.
Mean.
Speaking of which, in complete left field, one of the great things I saw on pictures coming out of the German toy fair was of the
Ah.
prototype of the Batmobile car.
I
Now
saw some of that. Yeah.
I hadn't seen the movie, so this was
I
and the
haven't seen it.
picture that was in the range announcement was a front three quarter,
Yeah.
and so it just looked like a slightly odd Camaro or something. But this thing's got a ruddy, huge V8 hanging out the back of it with no, I mean, wild. Be interesting to see how it handles as a slot car, but certainly wild.
It looked insane actually, but I that Batman movie's kind of escaped me. I mean, I'm not a big Batman fan, and the whole I would have expected there be more hoo-ha in the media about the Batmobile, possibly. I don't know, because Batman movies almost are defined by, if not the actor taking priority, the Batmobile they've come up with for the next film, I'm struggling with my words here, also tends to be a sort of star of the show. But I haven't, until the Scalextrics release, I really didn't know there was another Batmobile.
I'm guessing, and I think it's because this Batman was a bit darker,
Uh,
so it was a bit more about the internal struggle rather than the external toys.
oh, the poor soul is traumatized, presumably. Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
very his mum and dad were killed, and he's bitten by a bat, and he's very rich. So there's not much going
Oh,
for him.
issues all over the
Issues.
shop. Yeah.
Anyway, so going back, FV slot, sorry, Toyota 7 Turbo, €125. Revo slot running gear, so it will go like stink. It looks lovely. I would have definitely bought one in a previous existence, but I'm going to wait and see. I might not. Again, it's two slotted cars.
The
That's my new reference for everything. How many slotted cars?
the other thing about it, about resin, is I always have in my mind that they're just not going to be durable. And so the fact they've married this up to a Reva slot, makes me slightly cautious because there's quite a lot of mass to this thing, isn't it? I mean, resin itself is presumably a bit chunky and weighty. There's that metal chassis, chunky and weighty. So when that thing hits terminal velocity and leaves the track, other people might pass away.
Well, I suppose the trick is to not leave the track, but
Ah,
uh, I think also, as we were alluding to, I think modern resin casting techniques probably mean, and I don't, my experience is zero in this, probably mean that the body is actually not as heavy as you might have imagined from your past experience of a team slot Nissan.
yeah, which isn't a good reference point. I openly accept.
Hmm.
What else has
So,
caught your eye, Scott?
oh, now this is going to be an expensive one for me. I can tell the Scale Auto or Scaliotto, as we know, it
Well,
should be
I like Sclauto.
Sclotto.
Hmm.
That sounds like no. Anyway, Scale Auto. Lots of stuff being shown there. A lot of it kind of passes me by, but I'm a huge Le Mans fan, and the new cars, the new regulations, both for IMSA and Le Mans, call them what you like, LMH, GTP, whatever. The new top class Le Mans, so the Porsche, Ferrari, BMW, Toyota. Scale Auto have shown three of the new cars. I think two of them already in livery, so they're quite advanced with it. They look.
But did you look at them and think, wow, yes, they've put paint jobs on them already, but I believe they're 3D prints that have been painted, aren't they? They're not test molds yet, I believe.
Have I been suckered by my enthusiasm yet
Possibly.
again?
Or confused by my ignorance.
Well, anyway, so those caught my eye, and I thought this is good because I know SRC had said they were going to be doing these cars. And they're going to be very lovely, and they're going to be very quick, and they're also going to be very expensive, because I think the current price for one of their LMP cars is 100 quid. So that makes that relatively easy to overlook. So I'm assuming, we know what that does, but I'm assuming that the Scale Auto cars will be higher volume, and they are therefore a little bit cheaper.
So basically, an SRC in your terms is 1.5 slottits.
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly.
1.4 ish, yeah.
Just keeping to the Scott scale.
Well, it's it's that whole thing. Everything gets compared to a double-decker bus or the size of Wales.
Yes.
So I think that's roughly like that. Anyway, what about anything else?
Sticking with this, because it's of interest to me, because the LMP 1s and 2s of, say, the last 5 years really left me cold, and I wasn't interested in them. These more modern ones kind of have me curious. I watched a bit of the Daytona, and I the qualifying and the race, and I'm more interested because there seems to be a bit more variation in the look of the beasts at the front, at least. I thought SRC were going to do the hypercars. I didn't know are they going to do the Beamer and the Acura?
Well, I think this is where. So, although the bit of background, so the rule finally at last, common sense is broken out in sports car racing, and bit of a generalisation, but Le Mans and Daytona, so Europe and America, have got the same rules roughly. So the Porsche will race in both, and the BMW will eventually race in both. The Ferrari, not this year, but it will race in both.
The Ferrari, hang on, the Ferrari is a hypercar, isn't it?
It's a hypercar. So hypercar, GTP, LMH, these are all kind of designations for the same thing. The top end.
Are they? So that Beamer that went round Daytona was a hypercar?
Yeah, it's a GTP car because it's in IMSA, but that will then enter Le Mans as well, and it'll be in that top class.
Okay.
So it'll compete against the Toyota and the Peugeot and all that stuff.
Not going to lie, I am clearly quite confused and bamboozled by all this, but I will go and do some research. I'm curious. I don't like Ferraris. That one is a pretty mad-looking Ferrari.
It's very lovely. They're doing lots of testing.
I didn't say it was lovely. I said it was mad.
No, it's very lovely, and I think they're doing everything they can to win Le Mans this year. They're winning Le Mans because it's the 100th anniversary of the first race. It's not the 100th race, but it's the 100th anniversary.
Yeah.
So cool. Le Mans this year is a bigger deal than it is normally, and all these new regulations, new manufacturers. So it's all going to be.
And isn't this year also the 60th year of the 911? Wouldn't it be sweet if Porsche won on the 60th year of 911, the 100th running of the Le Mans? That would be.
Is it that? I would have thought the 911 is older than that. But maybe I'm not a 911. I own lots of 911s, but they're all 1/32 scale. So I don't know. I don't know my 911 history. Sorry.
I don't actually own that many 911s. Suddenly thinking about it.
There's something to get one with for the rest of the year.
Yeah, there's a project.
So anyway, I think sports cars in general make good slot cars, and these are all new, exciting things. So new shapes, new brands. I think it's all good. And if there's
they are new shapes. They're stop saying yeah. They're an area that's actually been a bit neglected. Stopping and thinking about it, isn't it? I mean, Slotted had their Lola. And they've done Audis in the past, T18s, were there? D18s, something 18s, Quattro 18s, I don't know. But they haven't been many of them in recent years.
SRC aside, with the utterly unworldly Toyota model, which I've got one of.
Which you're biased towards.
Actually, I'm somewhat biased towards, but also the upcoming Porsche one. But those aside, top level sports car racing has been a bit abandoned by slot cars. So there were lots of Group C cars. Everybody loves the Group C cars. We had the LMP cars, so the Audis and to some extent the Peugeots, but those are all now 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So the modern era has not been well served. Well, actually, tell a lie. There was a slotted Audi, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
So,
Were you
yeah.
listening? Yeah, and there's also the Ginetta that I think that Scalextric did.
If we had a lawyer, and we don't, they would be now sitting opposite me going, Scott, don't say what you're about to say. But
Uh-oh. Say it, Scott, say it. Go on, go on, go on, go on.
that Ginetta really annoyed me because Skeletrix went to all the trouble of making it. And the real thing, I don't think it actually did a race. And if it did,
Really?
it was no. I think because it was a complete. It was just obviously never going to be a good thing. It was all hope and what's it. I don't know the details behind it, but I think it best it ran in qualifying somewhere or other.
Oh,
But they'd invested in the mold, so they had to do it. But we had Porsches and Audis and Toyotas that were actually turning up and racing and winning races that we could have had in that same category. So yeah, it's not my that Ginetta is never ever coming into my collection.
Ginetta, whenever I think of Ginetta, I tend to think of two things: plucky Brits and men working out of sheds. They don't inspire a lot of faith. I think I'm being unfair, but that's just what I think of when I think of Ginetta, because I seem to recall their kind of kit car days and think,
I think
really
Plucky.
be hacking down the Le Mans straight at 200 plus miles an hour in a.
Well, that's Plucky Brits at Le Mans. I mean, I think one of the great things about Le Mans was always, and it's something that's sadly, I think, missing now. The days of Alan Decadeny getting
Yeah,
an old Lola and putting some new bodywork on it and cobbling together a few sponsors and coming third.
yeah,
And lots of weird and wonderful long-tailed French things that had,
yeah,
just looked beautiful. So I like all of that. Whereas, and I think you were talking about this earlier, where more recently it's just been a whole field of the same LMP2 car painted slightly different colours.
yawn.
Yeah. So I think the plucky Brit thing I quite like, and the out of a shed thing I quite like, and clearly not in the modern day of safety etc. But I think that's one of the things that's attractive about these new rules and the fact that there's now 5 or 6 different manufacturers coming in is that there's going to be something different
Yes,
for a
I,
while.
I I can see it's something different, and it's got me curious. Whereas before I was like, nah. Now I am genuinely curious. Talking of men in sheds, of course, Ken Tyrrell famously started in sheds, didn't he? And ran a Formula One team out of his shed.
I was going to say, he didn't just start; he
Yeah.
stayed in that shed for a considerable period of time. Yeah, yeah.
The other thing that about Scalauto that I was borderline excited about regarding the Nuremberg Fair was they had. I saw pictures of the 124th M6, which is going to be a thing of beauty.
It's
But I
going to
mean,
be a big.
that's been sitting. I'm sure weren't there pictures of a 124th BMW M6 from Scalauto at the last toy fair? Probably
I don't.
pre-pan.
I kind of have selective blindness for sort of HO and 124th because there are avenues that I can't afford to go down, so I don't even look. So I try to be quite myopic in my 132nd. So
No,
there may well have been, but no, I don't know.
there were, and I got quite excited because I don't know. I don't like Beamers. I keep saying I don't like Beamers, but an M6. I don't know what it is about that M6, particularly in the Valkenhorst livery. Brilliant. I love it to bits. And also the
Well,
one that ran in Super GT is just gorgeous.
wow, some nice liveries. I like that Total one, which was announced by Carrera. Very nice.
That was a
Um,
nice one. Yeah, you can get
yeah,
decals to do the Total M6.
decals, Total. Um,
Montaya just doesn't.
well, if you're looking for a GT3 fix, of course, I think it's from, as we're recording this at the weekend, Bathurst 12 Hours
Oh yes,
is
it's on. Yep.
imminent, and that'll be lots of GT3 cars trying to squeeze through a track which isn't big enough for
And I
them.
watched a little bit of the quali last night, and there was a car I'd never heard of that had shed a couple of wheels, I believe, at the top of the hill, and one of them had gone bouncing down the road. And I thought they called it a cis, something or other. You can't have a car called a cyst.
Cist, as in CIST.
Yeah, they didn't call it that. It was cis, I thought, but
Cis Italia? No.
don't know. It looks sort of spacey, but it did also look a bit bent and was missing two wheels.
So it may not make the race. That's what
Yeah, well, I think they said they had a spare one in the paddock somewhere, which may
here's here's one we made earlier. May not have passed scrutineering, but it's all right.
Bathurst. I find Bathurst quite exciting. I like watching Bathurst. I like running around it on Gran Turismo, and I like watching it on the telly box. And I pretty much always have. They did some fantastic work back in the. And we're digressing here, but they did fantastic work back in the day getting cameras into cars at a really early stage, didn't they? And didn't they also used to talk to the drivers as they were hacking round the corner? Well, not the corners, but
Yeah, no, I think there was. I think there were
down the Conrod.
the early days of all that in-car stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think because we used to get. I mean, younger listeners have to try and imagine this scenario where they've got wall-to-wall internet access to every race in the world, but you would get probably what 20 minutes of highlights
On one of our three
on
channels of
channels.
telly, yeah. It was. It
uh,
must have been on Dickie Davis World of Sport, I reckon.
yeah. So it was, and it would be pot luck whether you caught it or not, because there would be no
Yeah,
pre-publicity about what was on and when it was on.
and you didn't have a
So
video recorder to record it. It was just it was on and that was it. But I always quite liked. I mean, they had cars that were exciting to me, Jags and Skylines and stuff.
big holdings with big arches.
Yeah. Oh, and that brings us round to the Commodore. There's pictures of the Commodore at Nuremberg. There's quite a few. You said there's quite a few pictures of almost finished product, whereas Scalextric's released just a whole load of kind of renders back. Well, only a couple of weeks ago. I can't quite understand why they couldn't have taken a few more decent snaps. But that Commodore, I said to you, I don't know what it is about that darned thing. It looks a bit of a battleship or a cruise liner of a car, but it kind of appeals. I love the fact it's going to exist.
It's going to make the XGS and the SD1 look quite small, I
It
think.
is, isn't it?
I'll bet it's going in the Blues Brothers box because it's
And
so big.
importantly, it appears to have a interior. Certainly, there's a guy in yellow at the moment driving it around Nuremberg. Because I thought all Scalextric's Aussie releases tend to have blacked out windows of their supercar series. I might be
Certainly,
wrong. Maybe another listener will write into us. Another listener, get me
another
like,
listener, another
yeah,
one. Yeah, that'd be
almost
good.
an audience.
Oh,
But I thought they were blacked out windows always, which I always thought was a bit, I don't know, mean and not very good. But to see that there's a yellow guy sitting in this Commodore is, I don't know quite why I'm quite excited about them because it's going to be Scalextric. It'll have knurled axles. It'll probably be a bit rude. The wheels will be far too far inside the arches, and actually, it'll be probably the wrong color red.
oh, oh dear! It
Wouldn't
was
let
all
it go,
it
would
was all going
it?
so
Wouldn't let it
well.
go.
It was all
But
going so.
I don't know how much time we've got. There's also pictures of the new Camaro. Drive number 8 on Slot Forum I saw had put a picture up or put a comment up about saying something about Wankel will be happy with the greens, or he hopes I'm happy with the greens. I'm very happy with the look of that.
And will you sell your Bastos one to buy a green one?
No, I fear there's a collection brewing here. Possibly I will need to clear space for a shelf. But if they're going to put out a few of those, again, there's something about the shape of those Camaros. I'm not a big yank tank muscle car guy, but those Camaros tick a box for me for some reason. And I can see that I might end up going down the 3D chassis route, which really disappoints me. Why do
Why?
electrics
Why?
disappoint me? Oh, because it's money, and I won't be able to. Well, I won't be able to race it anyway at the club I go to because they don't do Trans Ams. But yeah, to make it work well, I think it's going to have new internals, which is sad but true.
Let's travel optimistically, and when it comes out, we'll stick it on a track and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah,
And you'll I'll probably say it's fine, and you'll say it's terrible. But then let's wait and see. Let's wait
yeah.
and see.
I don't. I think I don't do shelf queens really at all. He said, thinking about it. Well, all of my, I say these things and oh no, I've just lied. All of my cars, pretty much, I'm trying to think of one that hasn't been run. Even some limited editions that I should never have run and are worth a bit of money now have been run. So, but I can see myself clearing a space for a few more Camaros. Keep them coming, Simon. I'll say this to you, Simon. If you want your £3 back, let's have another couple. Let's have the UMIG Camaro.
But talking
Otherwise,
about
that £3 is history.
well, again, for those who are wondering, you've had a habit of showing up at swap meets without essential items, principally money, in order to
Gosh,
get in.
don't explain it to them. Don't explain it to them, right? If they want to find out the backstory, there are 6 previous episodes that they could listen to.
There are indeed, but just for the interest of. But there is a swap meet coming up at
Oh yeah.
the NSCC, the National Scalextrics Collectors Club swap meet at Milton Keynes, which is on the 12th of February. So if you're listening to this before the 12th of February and you don't live too far away from Milton Keynes and you fancy going to a swap meet,
And you've got at least £3 in your pocket for entrance fee.
I'm not sure what the entry fee is, but it won't be much
Less.
more than that. Was it less than £3?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's only a couple of quid.
Even better. So there's more chance of you getting in, or at the very least, it'll cost Simon less to get you in.
It'll cost.
What? Are you going? Have you been? What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I was toying with the idea of going, but increasingly I'm thinking not. I can't find a whole heap out about it. I even asked a question on Slot Forum about, who the retailer's going to be. I haven't been for at least 5 or 6 years. I think it used to be the only one that I would bother going to. I think NSCC had the kind of monopoly of swap meets almost. Well, in my mind they did. But Gaydon has spoilt me somewhat. So it's the same kind of travel time for me, but it's just easy, lazy, straight up the motorway kind of stuff. Getting to Milton Keynes is a bit twisty-turny, whatever, shouldn't really be a problem. But I need a motivation to go, and at the moment I'm not feeling it. Well, back in the day when I went, they used to drew over a lot of Spanish traders, collectors, and so there was exotic stuff to see, even if I wasn't buying it. But I can't find a great deal out about this NSCCC swap meet, and that's leaving me a little bit disappointed. Gaydon, the PR for Gaydon is certainly much better.
Okay, well, to be fair, the club is a club and it's run by private punters, etc. But if anyone's listening, let us know on the forum or whatever. Anyone listening? I'm in two minds. I think I love a swap meet. I remember the excitement. The excitement of going to this one before, when I think you had to be a member in the past. You don't now. Anybody can show up. But and as you say, there was things there which you didn't see anywhere else. Again, kind of pre-internet or early days of internet, so it wasn't as easy to see and be aware of, or indeed buy all the stuff that we can now do at the click of a switch.
Yeah.
But I still find when I go to a swap meet, it's interesting to see stuff. I probably buy things I wouldn't buy online. That's just a general vibe, and also the meeting people and saying hello and all that good stuff.
Yeah, there's the social aspect of it, which is good. I think I'm going to be probably a bit disappointed, more so than with Swindon, in that so much new stuff has been announced. I kind of want to see it now. More importantly, I want to buy it now. Instant coffee generation. Now. You've told me about it, so give it to me or sell it to me. So I might be a bit disappointed that none of this stuff that I am getting excited about will be there. I mean, I could go along hoping to see a Scalauto NSX, but I don't think I'll see one there either. I have actually got one now under the stairs at the moment. I have a white kit, so I don't need to see one.
Okay. Well, but the itch remains real, obviously, until you've built it.
Yeah, it does, because there is quite I'm going to reveal deep psychological problems here, but there's something good about going and seeing these things, at least seeing them. It's like being a kid. We had a model shop back in the town I grew up in, and I used to go down there quite regularly on a Saturday, and I wouldn't necessarily be buying a lot, but just seeing a lot of it was cool. And having a quick flick through the Tamiya catalogue was quite cool, until the guy said, "Oh, put that down, or if you're not paying for it."
Yes, well, you were right. That probably was an insight we didn't need. No. I think it's, and I'm sure the traders, would tell us that they know when they lay out a table of stuff, they'll probably sell it. Whereas if it was listed on a website, it might not move.
Yeah,
and that's something. It's all human psychology. We get caught up. There's a bunch of blokes all crowding around a table, thinking, "What's there? Let me see. Oh, I'll better buy that before he buys it." And,
do you ever get that? There's a little huddle around a table, and you're something's caught your eye, and you just watch, but you can't get to it. You're not in the front. You're not right there at the table, and you're thinking, "Oh, don't pick that up! Don't pick that up, mate! No, no, no! You don't like Group C Toyotas. No, you don't. Don't pick it up. Oh, you picked it up, you swine!"
Um,
No, that doesn't.
not quite like that. No, no.
You know
I'm
what? I think I
used.
need to go into therapy before we do another podcast.
I'm more worried. I'm not very good at haggling, so and I hate that kind of because I mean, I don't say it's a 20 quid slot car. Well, I can easily afford 20 quid, so why haggle about it to get it to 15 or 18 or something?
Do
So,
people haggle at swap meets? I didn't know that was a thing.
well, I've seen it.
I
I've
wouldn't
seen it
use
happen.
haggle.
What would you give it for? What would you do? What would you do those for? I think it's why I couldn't be a slot car trader because I just go, it's written on it. Anyway, so my anxiety at slot meets is about. So any trader, if you're listening and you see me coming, mark it all up by a fiver because I won't haggle. I'll just pay. It's lovely having, and I must just say this because one or two of them may be listening. It has happened more than once where I've bought one or two things, maybe three things, and the trader themselves has said, "Oh, well, I'll give you that," and it's a pound or a couple of quid knocked off, and I love that. So thank you, and I feel far happier that it doing it that way than me being some barrow boy going and having to argue for a discount.
A couple of Gaydens ago, there was the Pendle table is always quite early doors as you go in. It's right there on you. So, and they were doing some kind of clearance of stuff, and it wasn't the set cheese stuff. I picked one up and I was keen on it, and I simply had a question. I took it. It wasn't Sean. It was one of his chaps helping him out, and I picked it up and I sort of waved it at him and went, "This, I think it was a Lancia. This Lancia." And before I could finish my sentence, he said, "Yeah, what is it? 25 quid? Well, we'll do it for 20." And I only had a question about it. I wasn't going to buy it, but I just thought, damn, I'm having it now. Don't care. My whatever query I have, whatever fault it might have, whatever my doubt was, you've just knocked a fiver off. I'm happy with that. Thank you very much.
Well done. Well, do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like we're quite keen on going to swap meets. So
Does, doesn't it?
I'll probably see mention of Sean, the guy who runs Pendle, for those who don't know. But on one of the last week, I think, Electric Dreams interview sessions. I think it was recorded back in November, but nevertheless, it's on the Electric Dreams YouTube channel. There's a quick interview with Sean, and there was an earlier one with Julie Scale. So if
They're
you
worth
want
a watch. I haven't got around to them, but I think they're possibly worth a watch.
good things to do.
Well, I won't do it now, but I'll just build this up. I think I don't do a bad impersonation of Sean in his Lancashire accent, so that might get us closed down as well.
Yeah, let's not do it. I mean, think of the potential show sponsors. Think of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway, I think that brings us to a fortuitous close.
You're threatening to do impersonate online retailers. Yes.
Yeah. Last time it was singing to some impersonators. Anyway, thank you for listening, and if you've enjoyed it, why not subscribe or send us a letter
Or a genuine letter or an email.
or pigeon post or smoke signals.
It's all right. I'll fade this bit out, Scott. Don't worry.
Okay. See you soon.
See ya. Take care.